Yo, chat, it's Dan VR, your favorite yapper, complainer, glazer, everything in between. Now, I had made a video kind of like this before, talking about like the death of Deepwoken, and to be honest, I just did it for clicks. I was gonna go on a vacation, I wanted money for the plane ticket, bag secured. But I did want to make an actual constructive, more organized video talking about a lot of the problems I see facing Deepwoken that potentially could put the game in a death spiral, really. Because of all of these things, because of that, I'm going to take more effort in this video. It will be my last big yap. Going forward, I'm just going to do like content videos, just fun stuff. But I'm going to step back and, for lack of a better term, stop caring so much about the game, as it's very clear whatever the devs want to do, they're going to do. Nothing we say will ever stop that. The first thing I want to address in Deepwoken, largely, is the lack of innovation. There has been no real innovation in Deepwoken since Verse 2. And if you tell me, oh, there's new bosses, there's new oaths, that's not innovation. It's the same thing, just a little different, you know? Innovating is creating something entirely new or taking an original concept and evolving it past what it was. That doesn't happen. They just add more bosses or more items or more weapons, right? There's no real innovation. There's just clutter. There's just more of the same. And a lot of people fail to recognize, I think the developers included, that that doesn't work anymore. See, part of why K1's run was so successful was the novelty of it. If you were around back then, especially from Verse 1 or Verse 2, the idea that you would get a legendary weapon just on a random Friday, it was genuinely inconceivable. Because we didn't get that, right? We had the Curved and the Crypt, and then you didn't get a legendary weapon until Verse 2 dropped. And then past Verse 2, for a couple months, you didn't get a legendary weapon. It was genuinely inconceivable that they would drop a legendary weapon in a weekly, and then they did it back to back to back to back. Or an oath. You'd get an oath with Verse 2. You'd never get it in a weekly. Unthinkable. The devs would never do that. It takes too much time. And then they did. Attunement Pass, and so on and so forth. A lot of the success from that was novelty. They took content, or they took items that previously were very rare or very spaced out in their release, and then they made it streamlined. So it was really exciting because we got things perceived as very rare, perceived as very special, all the time, just drip fed into our veins. But as the devs slowed down and the novelty wore off, people stopped to care, because like I said, it wasn't innovating, it was just clutter at this point. It was just more of what we'd already had. And I don't think the devs have ever really addressed that or moved forward. There's no content on the books I can imagine that's genuinely innovative in the way Verse 2 was. Verse 2 changed the way everything worked. The combat was different. The shrines, everything was different. They have not come up with or spoken about any kind of system close to that. It just doesn't exist. So the game, unfortunately, is getting kind of stale. It's just more of the same. But building upon that, point 2, the devs very clearly don't really know what they want to do for Deepwoken. They're going to flip-flop between wanting it to be casual and hardcore. Again, bringing back to Verse 2 and K1's generational run, the business model that developers leaned into was a sandbox. You could use the Shrine of Order and make a super overpowered, crazy build relatively easily. You go do the new boss, you get that legendary weapon within 1 or 2 runs. Those relics, you do Diluvian, you get every relic you need. They created a system where you could be incredibly powerful, incredibly quickly. It was fun for a lot of kids who joined the game, because they got to feel super cool and use crazy weapons and flashy mantras, and it didn't take a lot of time or effort. You just got to get on the game, make the build, get the items, go fight. Now, arbitrarily, they've decided one weekend, show's over, we're done. Now, you're incentivizing non-shrine builds. You have to grind for RNG-based items, which they said they'd never do again. It's nonsensical to me, this crafting or this relic rarity items like Titus armor or the Primadon armor. How many people have you seen wearing it? I've seen one person wear the Primadon armor. Mantle of Enmity or the Titus armor, all these things, the warped gems, the relic crafting or the secret crafting. All of these RNG based crafting recipes spit in the face of what most of the players had gotten accustomed to. A lot of people forget that there are not as many OG players left. Victory for the OGs, A lot of people joined during K1's run. And you can look at the player graph, look it up. It's like row graphs or something. Something ridiculous, like 70% of new joins happened after Verse 2. Most players only know a system where they get relics and items and armor for very little effort. That's what they're used to. That's the business model Deepwoken leaned into. And now arbitrarily they've decided, no, you have to grind for hours to get the new armor and the, in most cases, meta armor. What? You guys said you'd never do that again. You said that it was bullshit and you didn't like that system. And now you're doing it. That doesn't make any sense. Nobody wants to do that when you've gotten them so accustomed to a system where they don't have to. It doesn't feel cool or special or rare. It just feels like a chore. It just feels like you've artificially made the game longer. You're just trying to make me play for longer for your premium payout. It's not special, it's tedious. Which then, of course, builds into my final point. The game's player count is low. Lower than it's ever been. I think it was 1.8k last night. That's worse than the Deepwoken Dark Ages. When you're looking at that, and it comes down to this cycle that a lot of players follow, where they play Deepwoken for a couple weeks, couple months, they get off the game, they go to school, or they go to their job, or they play different games like Type Soul, right? So they're not on Deepwoken. They take a break, new content drops, and they come back. At the baseline, put yourself in the shoes of a player who has not been on the game in over a year. And this is what your friend's telling you. Yeah, man, there's a new boss and there's new stuff on Deepwoken, but all of your builds are completely nerfed. No matter what you want to say, your builds from back then are nerfed. So you had to make a new one, which involves you relearning the build making process because Shrine of Order, in a lot of ways, is not the meta. You have to now decide how you want to make your build with or without Shrine. You have to understand how that works and all of the new talents that you've missed out on. And then once you figure that out, the prog is longer than it used to be, even with the changes today. It's longer than it used to be. And then after that's done, there's a whole new layer of min-maxing because of this relic rarity armor pieces and like the Enmity Wings or the World Serpent Scale. So you have to grind for hours and dozens of hours just to finish one build, which, with everything included, is going to be significantly weaker than what you had before you quit the game a year ago. No one wants to do that. It doesn't matter if it's the right vision for the game. It doesn't matter if it was the proper change or that, oh, we needed to do something about power creep. It's too late. You were supposed to do it 2 years ago when I was begging you, when everyone was begging you. You let it run rampant, and now you've created a system where even by fixing the problem, the new problem is that nobody wants to deal with it. Because I don't want to invest all my time into your game when the end product is worse than what I had a year ago. And with how buggy the game is, I don't even trust that the new build works. Unless Intigu goes through every single talent and proves it works, I'm not confident making the build is worth my time. And lots of players feel that way. At the end of the day, though, it's the devs' game. It's very clear, obviously, they're going to do whatever they think is best. And all we can do is just go along for the ride.